One of the most important financial decisions that you'll make in your life is how much are you saving for your future? How much are you saving for retirement? Well, bad news is there's some sort of common understandings about, what you should be doing, how much you should be saving that I would say are myths. They're not true. And then I want to help you not only point those out so you avoid those, but then help you know how much you should be saving for retirement. I got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Corhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. So, how much should you be saving up for retirement? How much should you be saving up for that long-term goal of someday choosing to say goodbye to that paycheck or being forced to because your job was eliminated, the company was sold, or you had a health situation that came up where all of a sudden you're no longer able to work. So inevitably, for all of us, that day will come, either because of a surprise, an emergency, or a time of our choosing. And will you be ready financially to step away from that safe and steady paycheck into retirement where you're living on Social Security and your other resources? And so for that day, preparing for that day and for that season of life, are you saving the right amount? Well, here's the thing. There's one way to find out. And unfortunately, there's a few common phrases or common misconceptions, I'd call them myths, that tend to lead people down a sense of false confidence or false assurance that they're doing what they need to do. And here's the bad news. You're believing in this saying, you're following what maybe you heard on the radio or something like that, and then one day you show up and you realize, I'm not ready. I can't retire when I thought I'm supposed to be ready, and I'm here at retirement and I'm not ready. Or even potentially even worse, you'll show up at retirement and say, well, I've been doing this thing. I guess I was supposed to do it. I'm ready. I'm done. I'm retiring. And you retire, you walk away from that paycheck, and then 5 years later, 8 years later, 12 years later, you run out of money. And you've made that decision to leave the paycheck behind, but you weren't really ready to do so. So what are those myths, and then what really is the way you know how much to save up? Let's get into that right now. The first myth when it comes to how much should you be saving for retirement is the myth of I'm just going to contribute enough to get the full company match into my 401k. Now you might say, well, wait, I've never really heard anyone say that. Guys, I hear this all the time. As we're sitting down with new folks, either through Zoom or face-to-face in our office, and we're getting to understand their financial life, their goals, how we can help them, typically we'll ask the question after we're talking about goals and everything else, all right, so how much are you contributing towards that goal? And guys, it is fairly common for someone to say, well, I'm contributing the maximum, or I'm doing the max, something to that effect. But I've just learned through enough experience to say, okay, and just to be clear, so what amount are you contributing? Not trying to tell them, what do you mean? I heard you say that, but what do you mean? And more often than not, if someone says I'm doing the max, what they actually mean is I get a match, an employer match on the first 6% or the first 5% or the first 10%, and I'm doing that amount so that I get the maximum match available to me. Whether it's actually understood or it's just sort of subconsciously understood, many people believe that's the maximum they should do. Well, if I'm going to get an employer match, well, I'll just do enough to get the employer match. I'm good, right? Wrong. What? I mean, that level of thinking assumes that if you work for an employer that doesn't offer an employer match, you shouldn't contribute at all, right? And that obviously is not the case. And so here's the thing. You're going to have that inevitable day of you choosing to walk away from your job or being forced to walk away from your job, regardless of whether your employer offers a match or not. It's on you. It's your responsibility. Now, many employers do offer a match. Many do, and that's wonderful. Many great employers don't. They're a small business, or they don't have a plan set up that allows them to do that, or for whatever reason, they don't offer matches. Your funding of retirement is still on you. Second, many people, not the second point, but just the second idea about, hey, this is a myth, and that is a lot of small businesses offer simple IRAs. Well, the match on that's 3%. So you do 3, your employer does 3. That's just not enough. It is just not enough. We'll talk about it more here in a minute when we find out, well, how do you know? Others have a safe harbor 401k. For me, for most businesses that I serve, I mean, the Safe Harbor 401k is a fantastic plan to consider. For that, the match is 4%. The employee puts in 5, the company matches 4. Great. Okay, together that's 9. Is that enough? For many people, that's not. So I would completely dispel the myth that what you should be contributing towards your retirement is just enough to get the full company match. That's more so the minimum, not the maximum, and certainly not the right amount. The second myth goes hand in hand, and that is, I'm going to contribute into my 401k, I'm going to contribute towards my retirement, whatever I'm automatically enrolled to do. So if you sit down, let me explain how auto enrollment works. If you sit down for a new employer at your new job, and maybe even your HR professional that you're meeting with at the time says, okay, great news, we've got a 401k, blah, 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 after they tell you about the other benefits, health insurance, which is probably where most of your attention is, then they get to the 401k and they might even say something like, well, you can enroll if you want, but we have a great system here where we automatically enroll you. You don't need to do anything. It's on autopilot. Go ahead. You're going to have contributions going right into the 401k automatically. And they might brush it off like, listen, this is this great benefit. You don't need to do anything. And by the way, we auto enroll. We start at 5%. You get a company match on that full 5%. So we match 4%. You're good to go. And like, check, hey, that's done. Retirement is done. We got you. No. Once again, I would look at that auto enrollment as more of a minimum, like a baseline. So listen, if you are set for retirement, at least auto enroll. Not in order to be set for retirement, you auto enroll, right? So I would look at that more as a minimum, not a maximum or the right amount. A lot of auto enrollments, how it works is you start for companies that allow this, that have this feature, they start at 5%, and then there's typically what's called an auto escalation. Well, why would they have an auto escalation if your auto enrollment was the right amount? Auto escalation meaning each year you don't have to do anything. You start at 5% automatically, and then it goes to 6% automatically the next year. Then it goes to 7% automatically the year after that, 8%, 9%. Many of them cap out at 10%. Some go all the way to 15%. It depends on your plan. Why would they even have an auto escalation feature if the auto enrollment amount was the right amount? No, the whole purpose for the auto enrollment idea was we have a retirement crisis, meaning based on all sorts of analysis, not that we did here at Wise Money, but just that other folks have done in the financial world. Hey, on average, people are underprepared for retirement. And we've got a retirement crisis coming where lots of people, due to old age, they're going to be unable to continue in their job. They're going to be forced into retirement, and they're not going to financially have the means to really make it work. And so therefore, let's instead of having someone opt in and do work to get in the plan, let's have them automatically in the plan, and then they'd have to do work or opt out to get out of the plan. Okay, so at a minimum, let's just have them automatically in there. But because we can't automatically have them in saving at the right amount, we'll start them here and then we'll ratchet it up slowly over time. So that's a great feature. It is. I've seen some reports that actually show that has been damaging for the average person's retirement readiness. Interesting perspective there. But I personally like the feature, just don't view it as the maximum or the right amount that you should be contributing. That's a myth. Okay, the final myth as far as how much should you be saving for retirement, in my opinion, is the most dangerous. Tell me, have you heard this one? You should be saving 10% towards retirement. To me, that's the most dangerous. Why? I mean, saving 10%, that's good. That's better than, most companies offer a company match on. That's better than the auto enrollment, right? 10%, that's a good number. How can it possibly be true that everyone should just save 10%? And so 10%, saving 10%, that's the right number for the people that only need to save 10%. For everyone else, if you need to save 11 or you need to save 9, 10% is the wrong number. So to believe the myth that you should be saving 10% towards retirement, that's incorrect for most of us, for essentially all of us, right? But there's an individual who I respect a lot who's got a big following on the radio and now through YouTube and other things, where he's got a loud voice and a big microphone, big platform, and he speaks to the masses. And so what he does is shares with you good principles to live by. Love it. Agree with those principles, right? And so as out of habit, out of principle, save 10%. But it doesn't mean that's the right amount for you to be saving. For example, last year, we're coming off a year where more people were unemployed and received a financial emergency than maybe any other year since the Great Depression. And so much so that the IRS went through and said, listen, if you're really strapped, or if you've had COVID, or your spouse has had COVID, or whatever, you can actually get into your retirement account and pull money out. Yeah, you got to pay tax on it, but no penalties. Listen, deal's off. Go ahead and access it if you need to. So what if at age 50 or in your 50s, you had a financial emergency, reached into your 401k, drew some money out to help cover a time period where you were unemployed? Well, should you still just be contributing 10%, or do you now have some ground to make up? What about the individual in their 50s who just hasn't been saving a lot for retirement? Now you're getting started in your 50s, you got about 15 years left to work. Is saving 10% the right amount? What about the person who started from the very beginning, like my folks, both worked? My dad got his first job at 18. That's the job he retired from, and it was unionized. So he had a pension. Did he need to save 10%, or was that actually too much? What about my mom, who went to college, graduated, became a teacher, worked in the same classroom, not the same school or school district or same grade level, the same classroom for 33 years? Obviously with the pension cover job. Did she need to save 10%? And so what about the self-employed individual? So listen, 10%, saving 10%, that's a good habit. That's a good principle. And really the idea, I think, out of principle was you need to be saving, and you need to be saving more than what you think, okay? But I wouldn't say that 10% is the right amount for everyone. If I were to just give a blanket habit out there, I would say, starting from your first paycheck, your first job, once you enter the workforce, start saving 15% and save it from there on out. If you haven't been able to do that, you might need to save more, you might be able to save less, depends on your situation. Okay, so to me, the third myth is, well, I'll just save 10% of my retirement, or towards retirement. Maybe that's the right number if you only need to be saving 10%. Okay, so those are the myths. How do you know? How do you know what's the right amount for you to be saving for retirement? To me, you've got to have a comprehensive financial plan. You've got to look at your cash flow, because right now, if you're swimming in debt, or you don't have an emergency fund saved up, or you've got a huge income change coming in the near future because your spouse is about to have a baby, you're about to have a baby, whatever, the right amount for you might be very little or nothing right now, because you've got other financial priorities and you're going to have to make up for that in the future. You've got to look at all 6 areas of your financial life: your cash flow, like I just mentioned, your protection plan, your insurances, how you manage risk, your tax planning to figure out, well, if you, with creative tax planning or whatever, you might need to save more or less, depending, obviously, how you structure those investments. If you say, I don't want to take any risk, no risk in my investments at all, they're not going to earn anything for you, you're not going to be able to save just 10% and get there, right? You're going to need to save more. This 5th area of all 6 of your financial life, the 5th area is retirement planning. And for us, within that category, you've got to do a 5-factor retirement plan, okay? 5-factor retirement plan. That's what determines whether you're saving the right amount or how much you should be saving for retirement. You look at each of those 5 factors, the age at which you're going to retire and how long your life expectancy is. So age is the first one. The second is how much you'll be spending in retirement. What's your lifestyle? What will inflation be? What vacation expenses will be there? What are you doing for health insurance? All those spending categories, that's the second. What will your lifestyle spending, or what will your spending be in retirement? Third, what are your income sources in retirement? Are you planning on Social Security or not? Do you have a pension? Do you have, and if you have a pension, how are you going to draw it? Do you have rental income, part-time income, that sort of stuff? The fourth area is how much have you been saving already? How much do you have saved up? And how much are you going to be saving from here on out? So that's your retirement savings. That's the fourth area. And that's the one that we'll stress test to see, are you saving the right amount, too little, or too much? And then the final one is how much risk are you taking in your investments? Again, you take no risk, it's going to impact these other areas. You take a lot of risk, you might not need to save as much, but you might have a lot more financial surprise. These are the 5 factors to your ability to retire. That's why we call it a 5-factor retirement plan. Making a decision in one influences the other. In fact, they're all interrelated. For example, at the extremes, if you say, I want to retire when I'm 30 years old, well, that's going to influence how much you can spend in retirement, what your income sources need to be, obviously how much you have saved up, you need to save up a ton, and how much risk that's going to be, all right? Again, at the extremes, I don't want to take any investment risk with the money I saved up. Well, I'm going to have 0 return. Okay, fine. I'll have 0 rate of return. All right, that's going to influence how long you need to work, at what age you can retire, right? How much you can spend, and what your other income sources will need to be, and how much you need to have saved up. So, and those are just a couple examples, but you need to have that 5-factor retirement plan. That's what gives you the confidence and clarity that you can retire on time and that you're saving the right amount. If you're not doing comprehensive financial planning, or if you've never done that 5-factor retirement plan, you got to talk to your CFP, okay? If you don't have a CFP on your team or one that does a 5-factor retirement plan, contact one on my team. Find us online, corehorn.com. You can also find us at wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there, or just give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.